So Thelema Mountain Vineyards have released their debut cultivar bottling of Grenache Noir, which is the 2022 vintage. So the question I've been asking myself is, why is a classic Stellenbosch estate dabbling with a Spanish cultivar like Grenache or Grenache? As it turns out, Thelema have a powerfully persuasive answer to this question, which has really given me a new appreciation for Grenache Noir in the South African context. And really, once you've heard what I had to say on the matter, I think you'll agree that it becomes harder and harder to deny the fact that Grenache Noir is really one of South Africa's most underrated sleeping giants. I don't say this only because of its growing importance as a drought-resistant cultivar in the increasingly dry Cape winelands, but also because of its remarkably long history in South Africa. Grenache appears to have been quietly growing in South African soils for almost 3 centuries. Historian Joanne Gibson does some absolutely fascinating Venus excavation. Joanne uncovers some strong, albeit anecdotal, evidence that suggests that Grenache had been planted as far back as 1729. And just to give you some context, that is 150 years earlier than our oldest references to Cabernet Sauvignon being in the Cape. The Webb family first planted Grenache in the mid-2000s, and they've been working with the cultivar for almost 20 years. Now, they'd always been inspired by producers like Chateau Reyes from Châteauneuf-du-Pape, but simultaneously, they also had felt a little frustrated on the local front that almost all of the South African bottlings of Grenache seem to have been made in an excessively light style, almost to the point where, globally speaking, South African Grenache is distinct mostly for being so much lighter than any other style around the world. I think this aesthetic is based less in some deep truth about Grenache as a cultivar and more in the winemaking aesthetic of a specific period in history. This all in turn brings us back to Thelema and their pursuit of the classic and their experimentation with Grenache. Thelema have never been about trends of the time. In fact, quite the opposite. They've always been about trying to deliver something far more enduring in style than something that embraces a transient trend. Which is, ironically, why it's quite exciting to discover that the wine in the bottle is very different to most of the South African Grenaches that had been released in the last little while. The first thing I noticed, aside from the slightly deeper sense of color, is some really rather arresting structure. They seem to have managed to attain a certain level of power in this wine without losing those prettier elements that come from some of South Africa's lighter Grenaches. And you'll see these pretty fruit elements working really nicely against some really rather firm tannins. So when you sip on it, you're reminded of just how grand those Grenache-led blends can be from regions like Châteauneuf-du-Pape or from Spain's Priorat. But beyond what's in the glass, I think what really excites me is the potential for this new avenue of Grenache where viticulture and enology can work together to explore the more muscly side of Grenache Noir.